Welcome, Drink with James, episode 137. I'm super excited to have this conversation, mostly because I've already had it. And while I'm not supposed to say this, but we've already done this. And it is great. We're going to talk about how it must be a long time since I've seen you, since I saw you at Fashion Week, since you don't go to Fashion Week anymore. We talk about building not one, but two businesses and everything in between. So excited to get into the episode. We haven't had guests in quite some time, mostly because I am remiss to share the spotlight. But I ran into Thomas on the street the other day, and he said, "Did I just run into you in the street? And let's do this thing." And then we relentlessly hounded them for 3 or 4 months. But we are very excited to have Julia and Thomas from Gal Meets Glam here.
Thank you.
They are incredibly busy, so we are very pleased to have them on the episode. Welcome, y'all.
Thank you. We're thrilled to be here.
I was saying the last time I saw you guys, I think we were at the Tommy Hilfiger show, and it was the football.
Yes.
They built a football stadium
It
inside,
was. Mm-hmm.
and they were on these bleachers, and you guys.
Were you there too? Were you outside?
Yeah, he was there too.
You know what? I brought my 70 to 200 lens.
Oh yeah, it was
and
the
they
one
gave me
show
a
he was invited
photographer's
to.
pass.
You were in the pit.
I was in the pit.
Yeah. The
That's where
pit
I wanted to be.
the pit is
Yeah.
a strange place to be, though. It's very territorial.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
throw elbows at you.
That's like landscape photographers shooting sunrise.
Yes, it's
in Yosemite.
Yeah, you
it's
gotta,
really aggressive.
it's very, very aggressive. Let's start with the easy question, which is how did you get into this? How did you start doing this? You've been doing it for quite some time.
Yes. So I was a junior in college. It was April 2011. Thomas was a senior, and we were both going to the same school, both studying business, entrepreneurship, marketing. And I honestly woke up one morning and thought, I need to have something online. I had a marketing internship. I was really involved in my school, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with my marketing degree. I stumbled upon Blogger as an easy way to create a website. And through Blogger, I found the whole blogging world. But I had already set up my blog by then. I probably didn't think about it more than 24 hours before it was up and running. I just wanted a place where I could get creative, just figure out, maybe create, some sort of portfolio. I had no intent of doing anything with it at the time. There wasn't really anything you could do with it.
Right, yeah.
There were no brands working. There was no money to be made. Instagram wasn't around. I think it was, but I wasn't active on it.
It was like a photo editing app.
Yeah, it was a photo editing app.
Yeah.
My first 6 photos were the same photo with just different filters on it because I didn't know people followed you. I just thought it was filters.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So
I used to do the trick of putting it on airplane mode, publishing it,
totally.
which would filter it and save it to your camera roll, and then you could delete it.
Yep.
But it was who's posting? No one's posting to Instagram. What, some sort of fucking weirdo?
Yeah.
I'm not posting here.
It's just me and my friends
Yeah.
in college.
And that's why you didn't have your account as Gal Meets Glam.
I
did your name.
So my name is Julia H. Engel, but people think my name is Julia Hengel. It's just H is my middle name. I didn't think about it, and then by the time I thought about it, it was just long gone.
Right.
And so we didn't really have anything big we wanted to do with it. I had a $100 camera that I gave to Thomas and said, "Can you start taking pictures of my outfits? People like to follow people. Maybe if I put myself out there." The whole beginning of it was I was finding celebrity looks for less and showing, Forever 21 and et cetera, et cetera. It was fun. It was easy. I was making little collages. Polyvore was awesome to use.
Yeah.
There was a site called lookbook.new where you could go and share your outfits and discover people. It was just, I'd found this community online that I had no idea was there and realized you don't have to be in fashion to love fashion and to have a place in it. You can be an average girl living in the middle of nowhere going to college, and you can have a connection with people based on your style, which I've always loved fashion, and I never thought I would be able to do anything in that space because it seems so unattainable, working for a magazine or working for a designer or having your own line. I always thought, maybe someday I'll own a boutique. That would be the dream. To own a boutique.
First of all, I want to say average girl is a bit of a stretch.
Well, I mean,
And second, where were you guys in school?
University of the Pacific in Stockton, California,
Okay.
which
so
at the time was named the most miserable city to live in the United
I've
States
never even heard of it.
by Forbes magazine because it was during the recession and it had one of the highest unemployment rates
And foreclosure rates.
and foreclosure rates.
And so when this all started, Thomas, you guys were already together.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
dating.
Okay. And so what is she's handing you this camera, right? And what is your thought? Are you like,
Well, I mean,
I'm just like trying to like stay in with this girl and sure I'll take her photos? Is this like, what do you think?
I mean, she came home and was like, I'm gonna start this thing. I've been on the phone with my mom all day. Like, we've come up with a name. Gal Meets Glam is the name. And she was like, can you help me out? I was like, sure. I mean, I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
And then, because she was talking about other people's style and celebrity style, and then like a week later, it somehow became, here's a camera, let's go take some pictures. So I was given this little like point and shoot. I knew
Like
nothing
kind of
about
camera you would carry around college and go to a
totally.
party with
knew
and take
nothing
some
about
photos.
photography. What I knew, I didn't like.
Right.
And then a week later, her grandfather gave her.
No, I went to my grandfather and said, can I get an investment? And he said, okay, what kind?
1 week?
Said-
Yeah.
It wasn't 1 week. It was probably like 3 months in.
I don't know if it's 3 months.
No, it was because it was the summer. So we had finished school
Okay.
and I was working. I worked right next door to my grandparents. And I said, I need to upgrade my camera. Can you give me the money up front and I'll spend the entire summer paying you back? And I did. And he always jokes that he was like the first investor.
Right. He should have been like, give me 10%.
Yeah. You should,
No, because cameras,
They're
spending,
expensive, yeah.
money on a DSLR camera is pricey for a college student. So there's no way I could have
Right.
just afforded it. So he helped me out, and I paid it off all summer
That's
long.
amazing.
And we thought, if we get a really nice, expensive camera, then we're going to take great photos. But it's the total opposite. If you don't
Right.
know how to use that camera, it's completely pointless, and you can take even worse photos than what you were taking before.
So what you're saying is you were not stoked on
No.
Thomas's photos right
No.
away.
so she used
We
to
were
sit,
very frustrated.
We used to sit down and she would be like flipping through all of her favorite blogs at the time. And she'd be like, why can't you take pictures like this? Why can't you take pictures of this? I was like, well, one, their gear is way better. And two, they've been doing it for way longer than me.
Yeah.
And they probably actually like doing photography. Now, I mean, it took me 2 full years before I even liked photography.
Yeah.
But he pushed himself.
Yeah.
Because he knew that it was important to me. I never really pushed you to do it, but I think he knew it was important to me, and he would stay up late watching YouTube videos. He got photography books. He had a couple friends that shot on campus, give him some lessons.
And with anything, it's repetition.
I mean, yeah,
And trying to
photography.
get better.
Photography,
have to
you
be
just
trying
gotta
to get
like,
better.
you just gotta shoot a shitload,
Yeah.
and eventually
Yeah.
it kind of comes to you.
Yeah.
Did you guys? I'm interested. Just like, I don't want to spend too much time on that much of the past, but I'm interested for both of y'all. First of all, like, were you the like person in your group of friends that everyone always asked fashion, like style questions? Should I wear
people
this?
would
Should I wear
always
this?
borrow my clothes. People would always come to me looking for inspiration or looking for recommendations. I can remember being young, I don't remember how old, and just going to websites online and just looking through the inventory. I just loved to look at clothes. I would grab every magazine I could and just circle everything, cut things out. My grandmother had an incredible wardrobe. She loved fashion, and she definitely passed that on to me because my mom is not so much interested in fashion. And her great grandmother owned a dress shop, and so she learned how to sew, and I learned how to sew when I was little. And fashion was just always something I was interested in, but again, just seemed so unattainable to be able to work in that realm.
I think what's interesting though is that, in talking to a lot of influencers, especially that came from the like style blogger, kind of time that you did, was that there was that, impetus that was the thing that like people were always like, I love your clothes, you should start a blog, or they were always the person in the group that people went to, and that there was this inherent, if not talent, but like interest and passion in it.
It's not so much talent, it's just a perspective. Like you have an eye, or you just have a unique perspective, because I think a lot of people like clothes, but some people just don't know how to go about it, or they can't figure out why or how. And so, they go to other people, and it doesn't mean they don't like it, but I think it just innately comes to me. I don't have to try so hard. It just has made sense to me.
Yeah.
But my style is very specific, and I've always like owned that.
Right. And Thomas, for you, like, what about your personality? Obviously, you guys are wildly successful, right? And in essentially everything you do. We'll see about gardening, TBD. But like, what about you and your personality and the way you grew up makes it like make sense that you turned out to be really good? I mean, you're a very talented photographer. That didn't come instantly. Yeah. And I find that for most photographers, it's kind of like that. It's like a craft or a trade that you have to get better at. But like, what about your personality? Has this like make sense? Your parents stepping back being like, okay, that totally makes sense. I get it.
I think a few things. I think everything that I always do, I put everything I have into it. And having Julia be there and I was there to help her made it so I just want to invest even more into figuring out like something like photography, which I knew nothing about, women's fashion, which I knew nothing about. I was willing to invest in, but I was always interested in entrepreneurship. Like from the time I was a little kid, I was, I had the lemonade stand on the golf course, turned into like a Cold Stone. I was making like ice cream on the golf course for people. When I was 13, I ran
a Cold Stone stand. That is advanced for a child. Yes.
He said he would freeze cutting boards and
then
go
we
out
would run
there.
them back and forth between our house.
That's advanced stuff.
Yeah.
He said he made
my
like a
Pokemon
lot of
cards.
money, huh?
I wanted Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Who amongst us?
Yeah. And then I ran like baseball camps. I played baseball in college, and I think a lot of also my work ethic came from that too, of just continuing like routine every single day, just working at it and trying to get a little bit better every single day. And also like on the statistics side, like I'm obsessed with numbers. And I remember I used to look at like the baseball scores every day and read statistics of who did well. And I was just like, I was so obsessed with numbers and what that meant, that when I had like a real world application to use that statistical knowledge, I really jumped in with Gal Meets Glam.
Yeah. And when did it, okay, so, you're jamming along, you guys got the new camera, you still suck at photography, you're still shopping at Forever 21, but you're figuring it out.
Yeah.
When did it get like real? When did you have the moment where you're like, wait, this might be a thing?
Yeah, I would say we'd graduated, both moved to San Francisco. He was working in tech. I was working for Shop Style, and then I was working for a clothing brand. And this is right when brands started to acknowledge bloggers and influencers and started paying them. And I remember, and this wasn't the moment, but I remember when the first brand that offered me money reached out because they said, how much do you charge? And I said, I don't charge anything. And the guy said, you seem really sweet. I'm going to do you a favor. Why don't you send me a screenshot of your Google Analytics and I can let you know how much you should charge, which is so kind looking back. And I remember he told me, and I just thought, there's no way I could charge this amount. That's like stealing,
right?
Because to me, it didn't seem valuable at the time. I didn't understand. But I remember the moment when I was working full time and I was getting so many inquiries that I was spending a huge portion of my time, like during my breaks, off hours. I commuted an hour and a half to work every day. I'd take the bus to the BART outside of San Francisco, and somebody would pick me up and drive me to work. So I would spend all of my off time answering emails, trying to like do all these brand collaborations. And it finally hit a point where I was making enough money on the blog than I was at my full-time job, which I wasn't making very much. And Thomas said, you know what? I wonder if you dedicated 100% of your time to Gal Meets Glam, if you could actually turn it into a business where you could make, a good amount of money every year to support yourself instead of, commuting outside of the city to a job that, you just kind of like.
Right.
And I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a year. And if I can't do it within a year, then I'll go back and get a job again. I haven't been out of college that long. It shouldn't be that hard to go get a job. And within 3 months, I was I absolutely knew it was the right decision.
Yeah. Are you glad I think that a lot of people watching right now are probably grappling with that question.
Yeah,
Of like,
it's a
should I
question we
quit?
get
Should I
asked
not?
all the
Yeah.
time.
When?
It's scary, you have an income set probably at your job, and it's terrifying to go as a freelancer. In the beginning, I did go back to my previous job, and they gave me some freelance work. So I did have that to kind of help on the side. But within 6 months, I stopped freelancing because I dedicated 100% of my time. And then when he joined full time, that was terrifying. That was something that we had discussed for a year before making the decision.
And was that so? Was the gap between with that? So
That
like
was about a year and a half.
Probably 2 years, I think. Yeah, about 2 years.
And were you, obviously you shoot everything now. Were you shooting everything, or were you? You must have been living in a similar situation. While you may not have been answering as many emails and things like that in the beginning, you have to be there to shoot.
Yeah.
It's just as difficult
Yeah,
for you.
I mean, because I played baseball and I was also getting my MBA at the time, like basically any free time I had was going to Gal Meets Glam and helping out with shooting. And I would do like some of the analytical stuff, some business stuff, and then shooting. And that was really what my responsibilities were. And that kind of kept going as I had a full-time job in San Francisco for a year and a half. I would meet her at lunches. Our
Spend
entire
our whole
weekend
weekend.
would be just dedicated to shooting. And then we would kind of like have our weekdays, and she would do her thing and I would do my thing. And then it was really like we felt that we had to hire another photographer or someone to spend full time on the business, or I could leave my job and do that.
Was that an easy decision for you?
No, because I really liked the company I worked for. I worked at a tech startup in the advertising technology space, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But I think I would have kicked myself if I didn't invest everything I had into joining Gal Meets Glam.
I think the biggest thing for him was he realized I'm one of 150 people here. They can replace me, essentially. And if I join Gal Meets Glam, I'm one of two. And if we want to take this business to where we really think we could be someday, he could add so much more valuable to our team than to some huge team where you're replaceable.
Right.
And that was like the moment that we realized, okay, let's do this.
I was also thinking too, like, what is our competitive advantage as an influencer? And not many at the time had a second person that was all in, invested in growing their business. And also on the side, like, I have my business background, I have my analytical background. So we were willing to like use that and say, well, what would happen if we put everything we had into it? Because we can figure out on the consumer side and on the reader side how to be more appealing to them. But then on the brand side, how can we get more work with brands? Because we understand how it functions, and we can have faster turnaround times than anyone. We can have a better sense of driving return on investment for advertisers, because that was my background.
Right.
So,
and I want to come back to this idea of professionalism, because something I've been like beating the drum on. But how much, when y'all are making that decision, for you to quit the job, how much are you also thinking about the health and strength of a relationship and running a business together full time? Was that a concern? I've seen it work.
Yeah.
I've seen it not work. Or would you guys just kind of knew that would work out?
No, we discussed it, and we always said that we were going to put our relationship first, because to us, we were married at that point, and our marriage was more important than a business. So we agreed on that, but we also knew that we could work well together, because even though we hadn't worked full-time together, we had been working together since the beginning. And we are so different. We work very differently. And oftentimes we don't butt heads or compete because we're working on completely different things. So we did have a good sense that it would work well. We also we're best friends, and we have been since like the day we've met. We just spend a lot of time together, and so spending that much time together wasn't weird for us.
Yeah. And if I could pry a little, because I think, again, this is the kind of information that it's hard to get out of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean? You know, when you're like, oh, we would put our relationship first, you know, I mean, what do you think that specifically means?
Like, if it came to, you know, the point of our relationship would suffer if we kept working together, I think one of us would have to leave the business and figure out the business on its own, but keep the relationship as the priority. And I think we always knew, and I always told Thomas, if you don't feel passionate about what you're doing with the blog, then I want you to go back and into tech or whatever you want to do, because I wanted him, you know, he's so smart, and I think he deserves to be doing something that he's passionate about.
And what about, you know, I think that obviously you're an ambitious guy and like you guys have built this incredible thing, but by the nature of the business, you are a less public face of it, right? One, is that ever frustrating? And also I think that, like, again, let's go back in time to when you made that decision, not now, because I want to talk about the business and kind of how that, you know, now that it's split, you guys are doing quite a few things. What was it, 2013, 2014 when you quit? 2014. Yeah. There was still, like you said, you were one of the first teams working on this. There was still a bit of I think there was this like thing about the like Instagram husband, right? It's kind of like looked down upon a little bit.
Yeah, it was kind of made fun of,
and I think it still gets made fun of, which is ridiculous.
Because I think people think that all you know, these guys do is just take photos and their wives post them around, or girlfriends or whoever it may be. And people always say, you're such an amazing photographer. But what they don't realize is photography is about 5% of what he does. You know, he's really runs the entire business. And I think there's so much that he doesn't get acknowledged for, which, you know, could be really frustrating for some people.
I think when I joined, the things I really care about, I don't care about being the public side of Gal Meets Glam. I don't need any recognition at all. I actually prefer it to all go to Juliet. What I wanted when I joined was to make sure that I was an equal partner in the business and that I had a say in where we would go from that time on. How
do you push that? I mean, you know, one, I think that like it's pretty common that like even Rich and I, right, running this business, he very much didn't want to be public facing, and he's very happy to like have me have to do that stuff, and he likes to do what he likes to do. I think that totally makes sense. And I think for those of you out here who are thinking about doing this with your partner, I think where it could be tough is if both people feel the need for that like public face of things. I think it would be just
and
intrinsically difficult.
Some people do, and I see some people do it really well.
Yeah.
But it's just something we never really had to encounter. But he's never said, you know, oh, I need to be tagged in that Instagram photo or credited, or, I mean, he posts like actually, one Instagram every 4 months.
I've never taken a campaign, even though I've had lots offered to me. It's just something I don't want to do.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, it's frustrating that you have like 60,000 followers and you've posted like 12 times, but like that's a conversation for another time.
When you post a photo, they get like 10,000.
I know. I don't want to talk about it.
It's hilarious.
We're not talking about it. It's very frustrating, but you know, it makes sense. You really make it count. Once they've forgotten about you.
He deleted or archived all of his Instagram photos and decided he was only going to do film photos.
Okay, so maybe that's
really
why.
Into it. And now there's like 25 photos.
Yeah. Okay, I feel.
Well, before there was only like 80.
Right. Don't let us get down the like Leica wormhole, because I just got an M6 and I know you have an M7.
This is all he'll talk about.
So yeah, we can't start there. But what I'm interested, like, how is that played out? Like, do you feel like you're like you guys are both driving this business? I understand the like separation of you know, tasks and things like that, and that totally makes sense, and it probably separates pretty evenly. Do you guys, like any kind of founding relationship, have those arguments about like, I think we should be going here, and you're like, but I think we should be going here? And are those, you know, hard to resolve? Does that happen often?
I would say it had never really happened before we started the collection, and it's not so much arguments, it's just that we have a lot of opportunity at our fingertips right now. and we're scared we're going to make the wrong one, or, it's scary not knowing like what the next decision should be. And I don't think it's so much butting heads about decisions as just having a lot of conversations about like my opinion versus his opinion.
I would say we both play devil's advocate a lot. Every time we have a conversation about something really important, we kind of say, well, what if
the worst happens, or what if this happens? Yeah. So like he'll say, I think we should do this, and I say, well, what if that falls apart, and then we don't have, I think it's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
I think that's a good, it's a like device I've used, which is like I make a list fairly consistently of like existential threats to the business.
Yes.
And how you would deal with it.
Yes.
And once you figure out how you deal with it, you realize it's not that scary, which I think can help even like as you quit your job, if that's what you want to do as an influencer, and say, okay, what's the worst that happens, right?
Yeah.
Like
you have to go back and get another job.
Right.
I do that I feel like I do that about everything. I always remind myself, like, what's the worst that could happen? Because I hate surprises and not preparing myself for any sort of circumstance. So anytime, for example, when we got our first big buy for Nordstrom, like I went through I didn't get excited at first because I went through the whole list of, okay, well, this is scary. Like, what could this mean that's bad? Okay, but now I can celebrate because it's good. So I just like to prepare myself because I know that there's things that can happen, and there's things that happen to every business all the time that's not, positive.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, I found that the things that I list as threats are never the ones that actually happen. It's stuff I never thought of.
I know.
That you'd be like, how could that possibly happen?
Yeah.
And then it happens.
Yeah,
and then it's a little
definitely.
frustrating. I want to get into starting the business, but before that, let's talk about like growth. Okay, so 2014, where do you think you're at Instagram?
Oh,
back of the napkin.
2014, Instagram.
300,
Where did we
400?
Well, I know that 2015, which was my first full year, I think, we were at the top of your growth percentage list for Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been killing it.
I want to say we were like 400,000.
Yeah.
I will say it used to be much quicker to grow on Instagram because you could make the popular page and you could have a photo that just kind of went viral, and all of a sudden you would get thousands of new followers in a single day, and that just doesn't happen. I mean, at least for me, that just doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't happen for most anymore.
Yeah.
What did you do when you stopped? Yeah, because like Instagram was such a small place in the beginning. It was pretty easy to grow, and the popular page, if you could get on there, helped a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that all went away, and the algorithm comes, and all this stuff, and you start dealing with, I think, the challenges that everyone is dealing with.
Absolutely.
How did you, are there any specific things you did over the years that you thought really, really worked?
I will say there's been nothing that we've done that thought worked except change our mindset. We now look at Instagram as a landing page for our brand. It is a portfolio, and when somebody lands on our portfolio, is it a representation of who we are as a business? It doesn't matter if somebody follows us anymore, but if they click my LinkedIn profile or if they go shop something, to me that matters. And a lot of people just don't want to follow a lot of people or brands anymore, but they're still taking action on their pages or maybe saving something or check up on something. So to me, if I'm not growing, that's okay. But as long as our website and our e-commerce are growing, that's important to me. So I'm not so concerned about engagement and interaction on Instagram as much as I am making sure it's a good representation of what I want to put out there. Yeah. So I don't worry about posting things that will get a lot of likes or engagement.
Do you think that comes from a place of like, following privilege, where like you have such a big following now that I could
definitely
kind of say,
see that.
Hey, I don't need this as much.
But I do always try and recommend to small businesses or other influencers, like, I would much rather be proud of the content that I'm putting out and feel like it's original to me than try and be doing the Instagram, mathematical equation to get a popular image.
It seems like
but
if you did that,
that's just my personal take on it. Obviously, everybody has different interpretations. But I think as a brand, like if you are getting people to take action, that's way more important than having a high follower count.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I do have over 1 million Instagram followers, so it's much easier for me to say that than to somebody else. But I
think we also were able to get there, and now we are sustaining that because we look at details at a much finer level.
What do you mean?
When we're shooting, we think about every single little detail. I mean, we will spend, I think, probably way more time than the average person does location scouting, actually trying different lights.
I mean, just you are obviously throwing yourself into new cameras constantly, trying to look for a new feel, a new...
That's a good point. I mean, I shoot a camera that's manual focus. I don't know any other blogger that shoots what I shoot. And I think that's part of like our look and feel. Like I do it because it's hard and because it creates an amazing image.
Mm-hmm.
I also know that it's something that's not easily repeatable.
Right.
Like going to business school, learning about like you create a moat around your business and you do things that other people can't do. Right. And a lot of what we do is we do things that others can't.
But I also think it's about creating that like look for yourself and not sacrificing that for the brands you work with. Because I think a lot of people, a brand will dictate what kind of image they want and they'll just kind of manipulate themselves into whatever that means. And, we stand up to brands all the time and say like, I won't take a flash photo in your dark party because that's just not something that I do. But I have this other concept. So it's always keeping that look. And I think that's what has made our following keep growing over time is I never sway from that. And I'm very specific to like the content that I want to create. But it goes back to, again, like creating what you think is a great landing page for your brand.
It's an interesting way to think of it. And because of that mindset, are you, and I think you've already answered this, but just to be more clear, you're not as concerned about individual performance of a post from an engagement standpoint, because I have seen, like it seems like if you two posted like iPhone selfies of yourself, that would be the way to get the most likes.
Like, if anything with Thomas in it, get way more likes. No, I mean, I have photos all the time that just do terribly.
And kind of like, this isn't going to do great, but it's adding to the brand side. Like, how are you thinking about that? Because is it hard?
I can't even tell anymore. Sometimes I think, this is an amazing photo. This will probably do really well, and it doesn't. And then other times I'm like, this is sort of a crappy iPhone photo, but I really like this picture, and it does really well. I just feel like I can't tell.
I think that there's too many factors
but
for
you
us
also
to
go
know
in,
what it is. It could be timing, it could be algorithm, it's whatever. And I think a lot of influencers assume they have more control than they actually do.
If you actually go and look at your reach, that's when I can see like, well, wow, this photo got a third of the reach that the photo before that did really well. That's out of my control. I can't make more people see the photo.
Right.
I think engagement is a terrible metric for evaluating performance. Because I don't know if there's any correlation between, selling a product and if someone liked it. I always like to say that a user can only take one interaction on something. They're going to comment, they're going to like, they might go and buy something. If they're going to buy something, that's more valuable than a like. So if people aren't going to sit around and spend so much time just focusing on your photo and giving it all the love that it needs.
Right.
Yes,
also, liking a photo of someone who has 1.2 million followers, it's like, you're never going to see that I liked that photo.
Yeah.
So like, why would I like it?
I think some of our least engaged Instagram images are ones where we have a call to action, like link in profile. Because people aren't stopping to comment or like it. They're going to the action. And to us, like if we can get people to take an action, to go to our e-commerce, to check out a new collection or check out a product, that's way more valuable than an Instagram photo that did well.
And you guys are the first people I've heard that says this, but it's in all of our decks to clients of just like let go of engagement as an ROI.
Yeah.
it is not a leading indicator. It is not something that's like telling you whether something, it's, it's a trailing one at best.
Yeah.
And
or any like people used to comment on blogs. We used to get hundreds of comments on blogs, and you could sort of dictate like how a blog post performed based on the engagement on it. Now we get, maybe 30, but our traffic is higher than it's ever been.
2018, our blog traffic was high as it's ever been.
That's great.
Yeah, but from an outsider's perspective, if they were judging based on engagement, it looks much lower.
Yeah.
So I think people are just interacting less.
Yeah. Well, there's so much more to interact with. Your attention's being pulled. And I do think that for larger influencers, and something we've talked about before, is just like, there's no reason to engage. Unless you're doing it to tell the algorithm you want to see more of this post, which you could do the same with a save, or or clicking on a link in the profile, or visiting the profile, like that. There's no reason, because like for me, I like photos of my friends to let them know like I saw this. Instead of texting you, I'm just gonna like this and see like, okay, you have a new baby, like done, job done. I essentially sent a present. A present is a like.
But also stories are cannibalizing.
Totally.
And like the fact that people are probably spending more time on stories than they are scrolling the feed.
Yeah.
People don't factor that in when they just think things are going downhill.
Well, didn't Instagram recently say that more time is spent on stories and scrolling through your feed?
Yes. I mean, there's just so much more content.
When I open my app, first thing I do is click on stories.
The problem for an advertiser is there's so little share of voice on stories.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm paying you for 3 story frames and you're doing 15 that day. I'm not really getting much value there.
Yeah.
So I think that's something advertisers are struggling against. Now, before we jump into more of the business stuff, I want to ask a question about consistency.
Okay.
Right? Because you guys have been pretty consistent in your style.
Yes.
I'm sure for you it's changed in these nuanced ways, but not only the style just of what you're wearing, but like the feed is pretty consistent. And so I would love for both of you, from your standpoints from photography and the trends and things that are happening there, and also style and what's happening on Instagram. Has that been a struggle? Has it been a conscious choice to be that consistent? And did you ever feel the pull to try something else that's like, oh, this is working for this person, so we should do that?
Yeah. So I would say the word consistency is like the most important thing that we've done in every aspect of our business. Consistency with posting on the blog, consistency with posting on Instagram. I mean, the most important thing that we've ever done for our business was to keep posting almost 5 days a week on the blog, to keep that engagement. And people like their routines. They like checking on their blogs in the morning, and the minute you mess up their routine, they forget about you. They find somebody else. And we never just gave all into Instagram and gave up on the blog, like I think a lot of people did, because they just saw a higher reward from Instagram. So we kept up that consistency, keeping up the consistency of always pushing ourselves to do better and create more at a higher level on Instagram. But for my personal style, like, even though in the beginning I couldn't afford a lot of the things that I'm wearing now, I always had the same taste. And I would say there was like maybe a period where I wanted to be a cool girl, and I would try new things, and I realized, you know what, like, this isn't me. I don't feel comfortable in this, and I stuck to what I liked and what I've always worn, and I think that's really what helped us build the following that we have, is because I never went after trends. I really wasn't wearing the things that other bloggers were wearing, or styling it in the way, because it's not like the cool way. It's just my way. Or buying the things that were like the it girl things. I was never in that. I was never like rounded up. I was never a street style girl. Like, I never had the photos taken of me at Fashion Week, and I never felt comfortable at Fashion Week because I wasn't considered one of like those cool girls that had all the trendy things. And I owned that. I was like, that's not who I am.
Did you? I mean, I know you said that for a little while you maybe dipped a toe in like wearing like unstructured Margiela or something, but
never that.
But like, was that hard? Was it hard? And can you see not, I think that like success is like a great, equalizer, right?
Yeah.
That like if as you find success, it doesn't matter that like you're not considered to be like, one of the cool kids or whatever in this space because you're like, whatever, I'm killing it, and like more so than you are. But like, I think for a lot of the influencers watching, they're looking at the people who are successful and copying them because they're like, this is the only
That will never
road.
make you successful. I would say like I became successful when I owned the things that I truly liked and stopped trying to do that make me unique. And I stopped trying to do all the things that I saw other people, like going to Fashion Week and doing all these different things. Like I never felt comfortable doing those things. I never felt like I belonged there.
Yeah.
And I just started doing the things that I felt comfortable doing, wearing the things that I always felt comfortable wearing. And we were like, this is our niche. Like this is our spot. I don't know why I was trying to try and do anything different.
Were you always like a confident, self-assured person? Because I think you hit 50K on Instagram and it's like, I should be at Fashion Week, not only New York, but London, Paris, Milan, both seasons.
I've never done I've only done New York a handful of times. I wouldn't say that I'm like naturally a confident person, so I think I felt really uncomfortable in those circumstances because maybe I had 50 or 100,000 followers at the time, but there were a lot of girls that had a lot more that, I thought were so cool, and I would never be that level. And I just realized that didn't matter. It was that like I just had to own my thing because they were doing their thing.
Yeah. And I think your confidence comes from the fact that you know that you're doing things right, that you're giving everything you have, that you're working your ass off all the time, and that you're staying true to yourself. Like that fuels more confidence.
Yeah.
More so than getting validation from.
But it definitely was hard at the time because, say we would get, we would have a campaign that we were going after, like you would have to almost do auditions for it sort of thing. And somebody else would get it, and it would be somebody, that just always got things and was sort of, a cool person. And you definitely feel let down of like, well, maybe I should just go and do that. Like, what's wrong with what I'm doing?
Right.
And it can feel very frustrating and disappointing at times.
Yeah. And Thomas, what about you? I mean, you've been shooting since the very, very beginning, which I didn't know that it's been from day one. Have you, has being as consistent, and the quality levels obviously, increased dramatically, and the stuff is beautiful. Has that been a struggle or a comfort to have that much consistency visually?
So I think what a lot of people don't know is I don't edit any photos, as my goal is to turn over an amazing photo for her to edit. So when I approach photography, it's about capturing in the camera like perfect. So she doesn't have to do anything. There's no retouching. There's very little light editing. And a lot of the creative direction when it comes to photography, I think starts from Julia. A lot of it is the location. Like obviously I help, but like once we're getting there, once we're in the spot, and I would say like once we have a rough idea of what the shot is, that's when I kind of turn on and really focus on the composition, the light, and getting like everything right. I'm so technical in like how I approach things rather than creative. And then like over time, just focusing on that, really the repetition and doing things like a certain way, almost like a calculation. I think I started to understand, like basically my camera is a second part of me. Like I see light now as a photographer. My eye is so tuned in to like, I'll see a situation, be like, I could never shoot that because the difference in light is like too crazy. But I mean, we love to travel, and that's like probably the most rewarding thing for me, whereas I can appreciate beauty, I can understand beauty, and then I just go into like zone in and how do I capture this, and how do I also fit in Gal Meets Glam and Julia into the story.
Are there things, obviously you've thrown yourself a bit into film photography on a personal level. Are there things you wanted to do, trends with photography you wanted to try that you felt you couldn't, with Julia and with Gal Meets Glam? I mean, if it's something that's like a super wide lens, and like your stuff is editorial and beautiful, but it's not like a Teza side of like conceptual, like I'm telling us, she tells a different story every photo. You're telling a similar story in a different way.
It's almost a similar story.
Yeah.
Over and over. Like everywhere we go, we find something that feels like Gal Meets Glam.
Right. It's almost a adjective, And so have you ever had things that you're like, I just want to shoot with a 16 millimeter lens, like whatever it is?
Occasionally. No, I think it's funny because essentially I've worked with one model my entire photography career.
So you guys know each other quite well now.
Exactly.
Well, we just started using models for the collection, and so he's like, he's just now getting used to shooting other people. Yeah,
I mean that's what it is now, because we're adding these other people as models. It's fun to try new things because I'm used to, I'm
so specific about like the kind of photo I like and the lighting I like.
Loves backlight.
Yeah,
which
everybody always says on my tombstone is going to say, "Can we backlight that?" Because I always, what about that backlight?
Yeah.
No, but I think it's been fun for him to try different types of light. I would say that I am not as adventurous when it comes to wanting to try new things with photography, and he will, and so he'll like rent gear and go shoot landscapes or just go and shoot for himself. Just,
I think part of our style was developed over time of like, what we used to do is we would get our shots, and once we felt like we had our shots, I would say, okay, let me have 100 or 200 extra photos to just do whatever I want. And I think over time that kind of led us to get better and better and better, because we were trying things that I didn't necessarily think could work, and then eventually that became like our style. And I think you have to have some sort of experimentation, and I think it's good to have that. Okay, we got it. We got our bread and butter, and then let's try something new.
Yeah.
And on the, moving on to the line, right? When did you kind of announce that and release it? It's a year?
So we announced and released it April 2018.
Okay.
But we started working on it in 2014.
Okay.
So it took a solid 4 years.
Was full time.
Yeah.
Right when he was full time, we said, okay, what's our long-term goal? Like, what's our plan? Because we're not going to be just creating content for the rest of our lives.
Right.
And I knew, as somebody who has always sort of struggled with like the sharing side of things, that I wanted, when I have kids someday, when I have a family, I want to be able to pull back a bit. And without a doubt, it was always like, let's create a dress line.
Yeah.
And it took us 3 years to learn the industry, to meet with different manufacturers, to figure out what in the world we were doing. And so many people said, don't go into apparel, don't try and start a clothing line, because there's no money to be made, everything's already being made.
Right.
But I really saw a gap in the market for my specific style, which is very feminine, classic. I hate using the word conservative, but it's just a bit more modest.
Yeah.
But at an attainable price point. A lot of the pieces that I buy are $600, $800. And that's just not realistic for the average consumer. I mean, our dresses retail from about $150 to $250. And that's still a lot of money to spend on a piece of clothing, but I wanted the quality to be exceptional for the price point. And it took us a really long time to be able to figure that out.
And, outside of the journey of just learning how to make clothes, and that's
been the if there's been one challenging, the biggest
nightmare.
Challenge, it would absolutely be that.
Such a nightmare. And props to y'all, because
Thank you.
You're saints, because it is a lot. And I know a bunch of people that run apparel companies, and they are probably those people that are like, never do this.
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely see why people told us not to do it. But we were absolutely determined.
Yeah.
And at times it felt like we were never getting anywhere, but we were always pushing forward, always trying to figure out, okay, well, what can we do next? And we ended up finding an amazing manufacturer who is like our family, finding an amazing designer who I work and design every single piece with, side by side. You know, I did not want to do a licensing deal where, you know, we have a couple meetings a year. I give them a rough idea of what
put a couple check marks and X's.
Like, I love those, love that. Like, launch it.
Yeah.
I wanted to design every single piece, and that was incredibly important to me. Even though I didn't have a design background, I have so many ideas in my head. And because it's so specific and it's only dresses, I said it has to be so on brand, because I'm not trying to just cater to everybody and hope we can, you know, get some people here and there. We are catering to a specific type of customer, and if we can't capture her, then we don't have her at all. And I think when people try and cater to everybody, they literally cater to no one. Yeah. Because people have no idea why they're going to them, and they won't remember them in a couple months when they're looking for something. Yeah. Versus if you're like, I'm gonna own this market for this customer, and she's gonna remember me when she's looking for a feminine classic dress for a wedding or something.
I think that's the unique thing about y'all and what you've built, you know, with first the blog and the Instagram, is that, you know, a lot of influencers build their following around their life. Just like, I'm this person, or like, I'm genetically gifted and look amazing. Which you both certainly are genetically gifted, but you have such a viewpoint, you know, that like you really, it's not a jump to then just like sell that viewpoint. And like, you know, it is so much on your ability to deliver on, again, we almost changed Gal Meets Glam into like an adjective. It's like, this cafe is kind of like Gal Meets Glammy, right?
It is, like people send us things and they're like, this looks like Gal Meets Glam, and it's like a building when they're traveling, or a cafe or a restaurant, or you know, shoes they saw. Or
now pink is really cool.
Yeah, now pink is cool.
We were pink before it was.
We're not millennial pink.
Right.
We liked it before it was millennial pink.
Do you have a T-shirt in the line that's like, you know, pink before it was cool or something? Because I would buy it.
No, I mean, to us, we never wanted to create a product just to say we have a product and we can make money and sell it. To me, it's like, I've got offered book deals. I've turned every single one down because I don't want to write a fluff book that's, you know, not full of substance. Like, if I write a book someday, I want people to read it and be like, wow, like I just took so much from this. Yeah. And that's what I wanted from the collection. I wanted people to say, wow, I've been looking for something like this on the market and I haven't been able to find it. And that's what happened, is we had customers saying, you know, I've just been waiting to feel a connection to a brand like I feel a connection to you. And to me, if we only have this tiny little portion of the market, I much rather have that than just trying to like do whatever is trendy to get anybody to buy it.
Yeah. Will that be a sad day for y'all? Because like when you're not out shooting, I mean, it's just like, it's not possible. Like if you guys are doing $20-30 million a year on the collection, like it's just not possible. You just can't. There will be no way that it will be worth your time to go shoot. You'll be too busy doing other things. Will that be a sad day, or do you think you will always make time? And I guess sometimes, sorry, my questions get very long because I'm thinking them through. But the question is like, I think it's either like you stay passionate about it, and no matter how busy you are, you're going to do it because it roots you to that girl and your connection with that woman and like who she is, or it's that like it's hard to stay as passionate as you guys are about something for now coming up on 8 years, and you've got this new thing that's exciting and it's going to help you grow and do new things. And are you willing to say, well, maybe it's time to take that and hand it to someone else, and still with my direction? Yeah. And this is years down the line. We're not saying like the blog's about to shut down, people, like don't freak out. But
no, I mean, just basing it off how we feel now, at least how I feel, I don't know if I'll ever be able to just turn off. Like, we go on vacation where I promise him, you know, no content, and I can't help it, and he can't help it. He'll be like, oh, it's just like,
I just bought this new camera. Let's just play with it.
I think, you know, it's just in our nature when we have downtime. We're just busybodies. downtime. Like at Sunday morning, we're just busybodies. We like to do things. We like to create. So even if, that's our day off, like we're creating, it's who we are. And I don't think it'll ever go in the capacity of passing it off. Maybe it might dwindle down a bit. Maybe it might get a little different like it has, but I can't picture it ever just going away, at least right now.
Yeah. Have you given yourself a break on that? Like in the same way we talked about Fashion Week and you coming to the realization that like, you know what, that's not me.
Yeah.
Do you labor over that? I wish I could spend more time on this and I feel bad and like our readers like, we miss you. Like, why aren't you posting as much? Or
I will say that like when stories came out, I had a hard time coping with not being an oversharer. I was like, oh, I should be talking to the camera and, documenting what I'm doing all day and sharing personal things because that's what people are doing. And I had to cope with that of like, that's not who I am. My instinct when I'm sad about something isn't to go and share it, which I think is incredible to the people that can do that because the connection and help they can give others is amazing, but I don't feel comfortable doing that, and I had to be okay with that. Like this just isn't in my nature, and I'm not going to force myself to do something that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah,
I don't know if that
answers
the question.
It.
Okay.
And what about you, Thomas? I mean, I imagine your job at the the collection is a little different. I mean, selling, creating, and marketing a product is very different than negotiating and negotiating deals and executing on those deals. It's two incredibly different businesses. So how has it been, transitioning into that role? And do you find yourself, when you wake up in the morning with an idea, is that idea about the collection or is it about the blog? Or are those two things so intertwined that we can't separate them?
I would say a lot of my focus is on the collection. And I think the hardest part for me is we're just now like really building out our team. And right now there's so much opportunity. I think there's so much like low-hanging fruit that we could take advantage of, both on the blog and the collection side, but we're just so focused on the collection side that we can add so much more value. But we don't have like the team to do it. And because we're still like bouncing between the blog and Instagram, and we run 2 Instagram accounts, and like it's so much that we're basically, I could go to bed at 2 a.m. every single morning and still not get to everything. So at a certain time, like we both kind of have to turn off and say, okay, like we've done everything we can do. Tomorrow, let's make a new list of those things and let's take the top priority things. So I think the hardest part for me is not like being able to get to everything.
Yeah.
And hopefully soon when we're adding like more people onto our team, we can start capturing a lot more of that.
Yeah, we just had a couple new big hires.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Hiring is time consuming and hard.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah. I would say that's been also like we've never managed people before, and we've never hired people before, and it's been a huge.
We don't settle either.
And we don't settle. Like I will literally spend months and months and months and months and months because I want to find the right person.
Yeah.
There's tons of talented people, but we work so closely that you have to not get along, but just sync up with somebody really nicely. So yeah, and just we live in 2 different places, so New York and Charleston.
I can't wait to see the journey. I think we should sit down every year because it is such, running this business for 6 years now. It's so different when it was 3 or 4 people to now like 30 something.
Yeah.
Where like, your life ceases. I assume what being a parent would feel like. Your life isn't really your own. You don't get to be like, oh, well, I want to do this on this day. It's like, no, you're somehow my schedule fills up. I don't even make these meetings. I don't know where they come from, but like all of a sudden they're there and I have like 4 hours of free time in the entire week.
Yeah.
And like, it's an interesting transition because it does start to, you know, it sucks you from your creativity a little bit because life becomes so much more structured because
Yeah.
your life becomes sitting in meetings or going to meetings or, you know, talking to people or, you know, working with your employees and training them. And you don't get to just kind of, you know, go around and do whatever you want
Yeah.
anymore. And it's a tough but like really rewarding transition because you get to start working on a scale that is so much different, you know, and
Yeah.
you can start making money while you sleep, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And, like, thinking about the people that might be watching this,
Oops,
like
sorry.
it is a luxury to be small. We just gave a presentation on like to small businesses and to be small, you can think about things in a different way. You can put 90% of your time just focus on your content and just thinking about growing. We don't have that luxury anymore. We have to do so much other stuff that, like, that's kind of our side thing of is like just keeping like the status quo.
We
going
made more before we had the collection.
Yeah.
We'll just put it at that.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure.
We, even though, you know, the collection is doing really well, we reinvest all of that money back into the business.
Right.
And because
Yes.
and because, you know, running a blog, essentially you have no overhead.
Right. Just, like,
and
raining down money.
And we're now able to take a lot less.
Yeah.
And we're, you know, that was a decision that we knew was we made consciously before we did everything we knew was going to happen. But yeah, like when you're able to be small and not have a ton of overhead and you are more in control of your schedule, and I mean, there's so many advantages to that.
It's such an interesting thing because I think you guys have lived it in this such a interesting way of this dichotomy that, like, being an influencer, running a blog, that is a real business. I think a lot of people don't think it is.
Absolutely.
It is a very different business than like a business where you have to have like a lot of customers
but it doesn't mean that person is working less hard.
But I also think the hardest part about it is that while there's somewhat of a path now, when we started there was no path.
Right.
You still have to make really big, important decisions that could risk your entire business.
Do you have an example of one that you made?
Well, I think, like, I mean, just the fact that we went out on our own and started, like, she went full time, I went full time.
Yeah.
Well, I think like knowing what brands to work with, like what's a fit for you, like what's going to be like your genres.
Yeah.
You know, like early on, we literally wrote down, we were like, okay, we're not just going to be fashion, but what are other things that our readers are interested in? And we made a big list and we said, okay, what are things that we feel like we could have a say in without being like experts? And we crossed off all the things that we said, we're just not interested. I'm not even, you know, I don't cook. So I'm not going to make recipes.
Right.
And I'm not just going to make somebody else's recipe.
And we're not going to pretend to be experts.
And I'm not, So like, what are things that we can also talk about? And you're eliminating categories that could bring you revenue, that could bring you potential sponsors. We've gotten, you know, huge opportunities for sponsorships with different like food brands. And we turned them down because we promised ourselves we were not going to go into that category. And you have to be okay with those big decisions because at the end of the day, you don't know what campaign is going to come next, what kind of money you're going to make over the next couple of months. And turning down money is hard, especially when it's sitting there being offered to you. Very hard for, you know, anybody. So, you know, we've turned down massive campaigns.
Especially when you know you can do it.
Right.
Like we can
you know
make
you do
this.
Yeah.
We got offered, you know, it was like a trip and all this cool stuff, and we were being paid a huge amount of money, and we said, this is just not on brand. I would feel so uncomfortable posting this. Our readers would be like, what's going on? And it wasn't even a question, like, if we would take it. It was an immediate no.
I think, you know, there's this thread as we start to wrap this up, so it's not 2.5 hour long podcast and YouTube video. There's this thread of like going back to what we talked about earlier is like, it takes a lot of courage to say yes to things. I think in some ways it takes more to say no to them. and to really start to hone in and understand what you are and what you aren't, and to say no when money's on the table is one of the hardest things, and I think it's one of the most important things, and something I always really respect when our execution team reaches out to people and they say, yeah, this is just not a good fit for me, like, and turns that money down. I think it shows a dedication to your followers that is rare and so important to be able to do what y'all have done for 7 years, and to have someone come back to your website for 7 years, like every day or once a week, is an incredible accomplishment, because Instagram is a passive platform. I follow you and like your stuff shows up into my feed essentially whether I ask for it or not. Sometimes if I want it, it doesn't show up, but like, you know, that's a whole other conversation. But to have people like actively going and typing your website in, it's a difficult thing. I think my last question for y'all is, you've built this incredibly, you know, this huge audience, is how you stay connected and don't become this like, you know, this like unattainable thing, because I think proximity is such a important part to the like influencer audience relationship, and that they feel like they feel their relationship.
This is a real person here.
Yeah, and they feel that like, of course they don't have a relationship with you, but they feel like they do. And how do you do that? It's easy to do that at 20,000 followers because you can just answer the DMs and you can respond to the comments. But how do you do that as you grow? How do you continue to stay connected to your followers? Because I think it's probably why this line is so successful as well, because you actually understand what they want. So yeah, how do you
I mean, I agree. It's so important, but that's something that's always been important to us. And before we do anything, we think, what are our readers, or what are now our customers getting out of this? Like, does this look like something that's just benefiting us? Like, look, I'm on a free trip, and look, I got a gift basket of all this free stuff. And you get to watch me experience it and get it. Like, what's in it for somebody? You know,
now
we don't,
I like you less.
Yeah, like I buy my clothes, I pay for my own trips, I pay for my own hotels.
We don't do unboxing videos.
Like, everything, I've never done an unboxing video. Everything I post, I'm like, what is a reader getting out of this?
People.
Like, are they taking value?
I didn't pay her to say this shit. I say this to you all the fucking time.
It's the most important thing.
You have to create value.
That is a connection in itself, is creating that value. So if you don't have time to go and answer the questions, which I still try and do, like if I'm in the car and he's driving, I'm like, oh, I'm going to answer DMs. I love answering DMs. I love answering questions. I
do it too.
He does it.
People on our team do it. Like, it's just understanding what people want, and especially our customer and people that come to us. Like, that's our most important thing. We love doing it. We love figuring out, and
that's why
how do we become a bigger part of their life? Right now we're just apparel and we're content, but how can we be more? How can we be part of every single part of their life? You might see a Gal Meets Glam car one day.
Am I
That's
saying
the first I've heard of that.
Is this like the Glam-mobile or something?
No, I think it's wanting that connection, because I think people now start and they don't care about a connection. They think, what am I going to get out of this? And if you start with that intention, it's going to be short-lived, and that's just the truth, because people are not going to stick around. But if you really want to create something that has meaning, you have to want to create that connection and offer something. Like, when you're starting, think, what are people getting from me, not what am I getting from this?
I love that. And I think that, like, bravo to y'all for, you know, finding the kind of success that so few people will ever find in their life. Finding that and, you know, sticking to what got you there, I think, which is, you know, again, when we were talking about blogs and people not posting, it's like, because they were just getting paid for their Instagram, they just said, well, I'll just do Instagram. But like, their readers probably still would have liked to see blog posts, and then to take the enormous risk. I'm sure you guys were making very good money and you were living a great life, to take the risk, to take it a step further and create physical product. And who knows what the fuck you're gonna do next.
Or if it'll do well, like,
yeah.
honestly.
But I think it's a
take it.
rare and impressive thing. And I feel like I've spent an hour and 15 minutes with y'all, and I'm like very proud. And I also feel like I just went to like church or school or something. But thank you all so
Thank
much
you.
for being here. And let's do this again in a year and
Absolutely. We'd
see
love to.
where we're at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.